It's the OK Football Show, and we've actually got a bonus episode for you today. New manager Matt Bloomfield has been appointed, and to really get to understand the new man in charge, I've gone out and I've brought in a man who's played with Matt Bloomfield for the better part of a decade. It's legendary EFL fullback. It's Joe Jacobson. How are we getting on, Joe?
Really good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's a pleasure having you on. And to be honest, the best way to really get to grips with the type of man, the mind of Matt Bloomfield, it's getting someone that's actually, well, you must have played nearly 400 times with him.
Do you know what? When there's a site that shows all your stats and stuff, and I think we actually played in the same lineup together over 200 times.
Wow.
So someone I know quite well. Was at Wycombe. Out of the 10 years that I was there, he was there for 9.5 of them, apart from his little stint away at Colchester. So, yeah, spent a lot of time as friends, as teammates, as coach and player, as manager and player. So, yeah, should be able to answer a few of your questions.
Well, I certainly hope so. But before we dive into it, so you retired at the end of the 23-24 season, I believe, and you retired with your 400th appearance for Wycombe, which is a really poetic way to finish and tie up your career. So what are you up to these days, Joe?
Yeah, in the summer, I didn't know that was going to be my final game in football. Well, you know, I had thought about it. I knew it was going to be my last game at Wycombe. I was always interested in the business side of football and had started working that out and seeking out opportunities off the pitch, even when I was still playing, and had an opportunity in the summer to be involved in a takeover that went quite public with a guy, Rob Couig, who was the previous owner at Wycombe, trying to purchase Reading Football Club. So I spent a few months going in there and seeing what it was all about and working on the club with Rob. And unfortunately, in the end, it fell through. So in the meantime, I've just been lucky. I've been doing a lot of media work for Sky, for BBC, for TalkSport. So that's kept me kind of within football. But I think my passion is definitely on the business side of football, and hopefully something soon can come to fruition with that.
That's amazing, and I hope you really do chase down those dreams. You smash it. I know you will. But to turn this on to Matt Bloomfield, a man you know so well. He's been appointed at Luton Town, and to read between the lines, but you don't even need to read between the lines of the Wycombe statement. Wycombe are very disappointed that he's left. And to get into the mind of him, what do you reckon is behind his reasoning for leaving with Wycombe in a great position, having a great season in League One?
Yeah, I saw the statement. And yeah, I'm not sure who's written the statement or where that statement's come from. Yeah, it is a strange one. I think I'm sure as time goes on, a lot more will come out about why, not necessarily why he left, because I think on paper, you know, you still go into a club that was in the Premier League last season, that is in the Championship. Yes, they're not having the best season, but you still look at the squad. The majority of the squad is still from the Premier League. With a new stadium on the horizon. Yes, Wycombe are in a great position, but I still think, you know, nothing's guaranteed in football. The only guarantee is right now Luton are a Championship team and Wycombe are a League One team. And, you know, I actually just sent him a message now just saying, look, congratulations, and you had to take the opportunity. I'm sure it wouldn't have been easy for him, but I think, you know, football, people are very sentimental in football. And I don't think I think a lot of the time they make decisions on emotion, you know, especially when fans see what's going on. But I think this one, in a few months' time, maybe if he speaks about it a little bit more, or the club release something a little bit more about it, then maybe we'll understand the exact reasons why. But, you know, for me, I think it was just a case of, you have an opportunity as a football manager, you want to progress as high up the pyramid as you can. There was an opportunity. I think this was his first opportunity that another team had come in for. I knew there was a little bit of speculation early on in the season, but I think this is the first time that permission was asked for and permission was granted. So this is where it's ended up.
Yeah, it's really interesting because Wickham were well within their rights to, you know, issue a hands-off warning and say no, he's not going anywhere. And the reported compensation for him was it was discussed and it came out. I don't know how that figure came out, but it was reported £100,000, which is really low, really low for a compensation package. So, and Luton's statement reflects that in the sense that it's been written here: the club have gone above and beyond what was expected regarding compensation, and along with Matt Bloomfield has come well a few other people: Richard Thomas, Lee Harrison, and Ben Cern. Like, what type of what mindset will they bring with?
They're really good people. I spent a year or 18 months with Ben Cern and with Richard Thomas when Matt brought me in from Colchester. Richard Thomas is one of the best coaches I've ever worked with. His detail on the pitch was brilliant. I really enjoyed working with him. Ben Cern's a great analyst. A lot of analysts are similar to a player. You know, they just put things on for you to look at and information that you have to take in. And Lee Harrison, I think he's been really good for Blooms. I think he's kind of Blooms' calming influence on his shoulder. Lee was at Wickham before Blooms left. He then took him to Colchester, brought him back again. He's now taken him to Luton. So they've obviously got a very good relationship. I know all four of them travel in together every morning. They all kind of live around the M25 at certain points. So they spend a lot of time together. They obviously trust each other and you know, they've given time in football, which managers don't often get. They've managed to create something that's really good. And there was a period last season where I think we went 15 or 16 games without winning a game, and you know, fans were calling for the manager's head, and as they do normally. You've seen it at Luton, what happened with Rob Edwards, and you know, the chairman at the time, Rob Cooper, came out and was like, nope, you know, he's my guy, he's my manager, I trust him, here's a new contract. And I think then it kind of settles everything down. So they had the trust of the ownership. Whether or not that's changed now, I don't know. You know, I saw Matt's brief interview as well, which kind of said about it's nice to feel wanted, and he kind of reiterated that statement a couple of times. So, you know, and as fans looking in, you kind of break down every kind of word that he's saying, but it may not be as simple as that. But yeah, I think he wants to take his team with him, who he respects, who he trusts, and you know, it's a big job. And straight away you're going from a team that's used to winning every week to a team that's used to losing every week. So straight away you've got to get the mindset changed. You've got to work with different players, and you know, it just happens immediately. You've got a game on the weekend, you've got to get straight into it.
So you raise a very interesting point there. So he's going from a team that's on a very much upward trajectory, and now he's going into a team that has a culture of losing that's kind of just rotted into it. How do you think he'll go ahead to sort of turn that around, get the players firing again?
I think you just got to kind of. I think sometimes as well, it's just a fresh voice. It's, you know, they're good players there. They've been in the Premier League, a lot of them, so there is good players there. It's maybe, and I know Rob. I played with Rob earlier on in my career, and I think Rob's a great guy. And in football, sometimes it's just a different voice is all it takes for players to kind of think differently. All of a sudden now they'll be thinking, right, we've got a new manager, we need to impress. So their mindset of going out, they may get used to doing the same sessions, the same warm ups, the same drills in training, which a lot of managers do. And all of a sudden now it's fresh, it's different, you know, it's exciting again. So maybe that will kind of kickstart them. And as Bloom's as manager needs to go in, and I don't think he's anyone going to reinvent the wheel. He's not that type of manager who's going to all of a sudden make you play 500 passes in the back line before you create an attack. He's someone who wants to get the ball forward. There'll be a little bit playing out, but at the end of the day, he wants to go forward and score goals. And I think that's what's been lacking at Luton a lot this season, is that attacking kind of threat and not enough goals.
It has indeed. To be honest, most of our threat has come from set pieces. And other than that, we've looked relatively toothless up top, and players like Carlton and Elijah Adebayo, who, they got 10 and 11 goals respectively apiece in the Premier League. But this season, I don't know, it looks like they've been space jammed, to be honest. I hope you're right that it is as simple as a new voice. So I've watched a fair bit of Wickham in terms of trying to get to grips with how Matt Bloomfield will set the team up. And Luton have recently reverted to a back four after almost 18 months, 2 years of playing a back three. Do you think this is a system that Matt will just immediately run with, the 4-2-3-1, or do you think he's not going to try and change too much too soon?
No, look, as players, we've all played in every formation possible. You've all learned to play in a 3, a 4, whether it's 2 sitting, 1 sit, whatever it is, everyone's used to it. And as the game goes on, depending on what you're playing against, changes your formation anyway. So a lot said about formations, but it's very fluid formations. But I think his principles will be a 4-2-3-1. He likes to have his 2 pivots and his 2 holding midfielders. And a solid back 4. I think as a defender, I think there's less grey areas when you've got a back 4 rather than a back 3. I think it's made a lot simpler. When he first came in, we were used to playing a 3 at Wickham, and you could tell, I spoke to him and he said, I do want to play a 4 at some point. So eventually we changed to that and got good results from it. So maybe it's the same thing again now is working on a 4. And then I think it's easy. What he did a lot with Richard Thomas is they repeat their patterns of play a lot on a small pitch. There's a session they do. They have a small pitch at the training ground. It's like a 5-a-side pitch, and you do 11v11. Not up against anyone, but just reiterating patterns, just practicing patterns of play over and over again. So you get used to doing it in a match, which I thought was a really good idea that they did. So the players will get used to playing in that system. They'll get used to the patterns that the manager wants. And like I said, they're not new patterns that no one's ever, heard of or seen before, but it's just getting repetitive things into your brain that the manager wants. And I think the more clarity you have as a footballer, the easier then it becomes on the weekend. And, if you've got confidence and clarity in what the manager wants and what he says, then all of a sudden you can go out there and not have to think about anything and you become a better player.
You've made me think of that Newcastle training story under Ozzy Ardiles. I don't know if you've ever heard it, where they're playing against that they're just having a one-sided training match and they kick off and then it goes back to the midfield. Midfield passes back to the defender and the defender passes it back to the goalkeeper who's still playing on his gloves. And they're 1-0 down, they're not playing anybody. Now, that's how I'm imagining training is going to be going at Luton Town, because we are currently in that mindset. Rock bottom confidence. So I do hope those patterns, like you say, a lot of players, like, they played every system, they played every pattern, they know what they're doing, and obviously they're in the 0.1% of footballing ability. That's why they're playing in the second tier of English football and have played in the top tier. So I do hope you're right in that sense. I've got to ask about Matt Bloomfield when Gareth Ainsworth was around. So because Matt is now a manager, was he a teacher's pet at Wickham?
Was he a teacher's pet? Matt was very, very professional. And when I signed in 2014, I'd never had anyone that showed me how to get in early, to do an hour's work before training started, to be in the gym the whole time, stay around afterwards. And he was the one that I saw doing that. And I think then it helped me prolong my career because I saw him doing that. I wanted to then emulate him, and then you breed the next one and all of a sudden the whole team's doing it. Would I say he's a teacher's pet? Look, he's he's one of those that there's always one, and I wouldn't say he's the teacher's pet, and and wouldn't necessarily get involved with the boys at all. But you could tell that he always wanted to be a coach. He knew the gaffer. They played together. Him and Gareth Ainsworth, they roomed together at times, so they obviously had a good relationship. And when Matt got the job and I was there, people probably thought the same as me because I'd still spend a lot of time with him and go and speak in his office and things like that. And ask me about training sessions or players coming in and things like that. So I think it's just, a manager having players there that he can trust. I'm not sure there's anyone at Luton that he's worked with before as a player. So it'd be interesting to see if Rob Edwards, it sounds like Rob had a couple there. You always see him very close to a few of the players, and whether or not those players now will probably think, oh, how am I going to deal with maybe having a new manager and not all my perks that I had under the old manager. So the dynamic changed, but I think that's a good thing. It freshens things up, and players after a while could get complacent, and this appointment is going to stop all of that.
Well, Matt's, I would say he's part of the furniture at Luton Town already. He's played against Luton 11 times, with his first appearance coming in 2004. And Hatters Heritage actually put up a picture of him playing against, I think it was against Steve Robinson, who was also in the managerial running list published by betting companies. So it's very funny seeing that. It was like Matt Bloomfield, Stephen Robinson, and then Calvin Andrew off to one side as well. Like some real blasts from the past. And there was also a picture with you in it as well, with Matt Bloomfield in the back as well, I think from, must have been 2015. But it's absolutely... I'm very enthused. I'm very enthused by Matt joining. And last question. So, obviously, Luton are, for a better lack of a word, in the shit right now. Do you think Matt has what it takes to turn it around and keep Luton up?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when he went into Colchester, they were in a similar position and did really well there. I think within 4 months, I think he won 1 or 2 Manager of the Month there. So he's more than capable of doing a quick fix. Again, similar with Wickham last season, there was times where we were looking over our shoulders a little bit, and he found something to turn it round and take us on a really good run. And like I said, you've got good players there. You've got players that have done it at that level. And I spoke the other day on the radio, and a lot of the times the manager gets blamed very quickly, but at some point you've got to kind of blame the players and think, hang on a minute, we know you've done it before, you've produced it before, so this isn't on the manager anymore. This could be on the players, and I think if the players now step up, first of all, you don't want to put anything on Rob Edwards, but why haven't they done that for the previous manager? But like I said before, sometimes you just need a fresh start, you need a different voice, you need a different perspective on things, and these players are now going to want to impress the new management team because their futures are now going to be up in the air and thinking about, is he going to want to bring in all those new players? Is my place up for grabs? A position that a player thought may be untouchable. Now all of a sudden everyone's probably on an even playing field and everyone's fighting for their places again. So I think he'll be more than capable of keeping them up, and you'd like to think with the squad that they've got, and hopefully with a couple of weeks left in the transfer window, they're able to bring 1 or 2 more in, and they can strengthen going forward for the rest of the season.
So is Matt Bloomfield going to be on the phone to bring in a 38-year-old Joe Jacobson, do you reckon?
Absolutely not. No, there's a better JJ that's already there waiting in the wings.
Correct answer. I hope he does give youth a chance. Joe, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, mate.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and best of luck for all your endeavours in the future. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
So if you've enjoyed this show from OK Football, please remember, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell, and you'll be notified when we go live. We're going to have a fan phone in tonight, or if you're watching this after the fan phone in, just click the link in the description and you can watch it back. As always, come on you Hatters.